All right, 2 recordings in a day, back for another Conquest Battle Report. So, for this particular one, I am running a store army of Spires, and Steve is going to be proxying an army of city-states that are only the bread units. So why don't you go through your list first, because I got to grab mine from over here.
Absolutely. So leading this force, we have an Aristarch with the Spear of Atalana.
Okay.
And
what the hell does that do?
So that's the weapon
the cleave 3?
No, that's the +1 attack.
Got it.
Cleave 1, I believe.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, so he's got that. And he has Expert Scouts, which will give all 3 of the bow units Vanguard.
Got it.
So they're a little bit faster onto the board.
Yeah.
And then with him we have 2 units, very obviously, of the Salinoy Archers.
Yep. To test this out, we're missing some models, so we're rather to run things empty to represent it rather than a bunch of other things. So make it easy.
Ooh, I should have one more base in one of those units. I'll fix
that
in a
lots
moment.
of one.
Yeah. So 2 units of bows. One should have 4. One has 3.
Mm-hmm.
2 units of 2 Sadaroi.
Okay.
They're the melee ones that have the super duper flanking ability.
Yes.
We both have assassins in the unit.
Got it.
And then for a second group, we have a Polomark. This guy has the crazy -4 cleave blade.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
Got it.
Giving a little bit of melee support to an otherwise ranged unit. And he also has the Standard of Last Duration, giving him +2 to score objectives, and the turn that he dies,
Got it.
I super control that objective. You can't take it away.
Yep. So he's
He also
with
has
the bow.
overkills and mastery.
Okay.
So if he's in a duel and he does the extra wounds, it carries over his head. 10 points.
Understood. Yeah, why not?
Exactly. Then he's got a little unit of 3, should be 4 bows. I'll grab a base for that as well.
Okay.
We got 2 units of 3 Haspists and 1 chunky unit of 5 Thyrians.
Okay. For mine, so like I said, I'm running Spires. So we have a Biomancer leading this. Biomancer has Degenerative Aura, so that is lethal demise, and you can't heal if you're touching them. He also has Master of Flesh, so that way Master of Flesh is the 2 Biomancies. So he can do 2 of his Biomancies. He's in the pack of 7 Force-Grown Drones. Just standard in there, because I had the points, why not? Or I think it might even be free. 3 Incarnate Sentinels. Nothing special on them. Let's go to the next page. We got a Lineage Highborn and a unit of Avatar, another unit of Avatar, Centaur Avatar. Every one of them actually has banners, whether or not they see it. Siegebreaker Behemoth. And then we have the High Clone Executor right there. He has the upgrade for Marksman and Disperse, so he counts them as loose formation, and he shoots just as good as the clones that he's with, sorry, Marksman clones. And then I got a 3-pack of Vanguard clones because I have the spare points. I am running Directorate, obviously, so one of my units every turn gets to do Burnout. That's +1 clash, +2 move, but then they decay 3. And I think I get to count people on objectives for distances as well, but I will check that. I do believe that's correct. So, going over to the mission.
I mean, you guys are going to have to...
We're playing a Maelstrom. Maelstrom means we have 2 9-inchers.
They won't fit.
And we have a 6-inch in the middle. The way this works, rounds 1 to 4 and 9 to 10. So first sets, it's 2 points for taking the 6, 1 point for the big 9s, then 5 to 8, so the real conquesty rounds. Those are the rounds where it's 2 for the small, 1 for the big. So it swaps. So essentially, this one doesn't actually have it that way. 2... Oh, no, this card is misprinted. It's supposed to be 2 and 1, then 2 and 1. So we'll do it that way.
I think the FAQs address that.
Yeah, the card is actually printed backwards. Essentially, it should be the smaller one is worth more early is what we'll do. The bigger ones are worth more in the middle. All right, that is the mission that we are going to run, and we'll be back with this particular camera point in between rounds.
We're going to armies.
All right, so this is the first battle report we're putting out with a little bit of a different format as well. Now, you're still going to get some long-form battle reports from us, hopefully at least coming up this week. But for this one, we're doing more of this quicker sort of discussion overview, where I'm also going to discuss tactical decision on both of our sides. We're doing this one. We had some audio issues. I've been working through all that, but I think we finally got it figured out. But also, I know there was a call for some of this. So I'm on the right, Steve is on the left. For first turn, I'll do longer deep dives when we get to it. But for first turn, I have my unit of Force-Grown Drones with my Biomancer coming in from the bottom right. Steve has his unit of Selene coming in from the mid-section on the left. Keep in mind, this is a shooting unit. They have loose formation, so having the number of shots, they always kind of obscured essentially with the pole mark in it. And that's essentially what we get for turn 1. All right, and here we are with the second turn. So I'm just going to review a bit, and then I'll go to highlight pieces. Obviously, these highlights will get longer as we go along. So turn 2, Steve gets in his Haspis units. He has 2 of his units of, what is that, Selene? So 2 bow shooting guys. And that gives him both of his heroes, his Polemarch and his Aristarch. He obviously starts with some delay tactics. I do a very much the same sort of thing as we see here. So we'll get into what happens next. Effectively, what I do next is I want to bring up my marksman clones. His unit that you see there in the middle of the board is actually close enough for me to be able to shoot, measured it out, just has range. So the goal is to be able to take them down. So as you're going to notice here in a moment, when I bring my clones in, I'm going to bring the clones in effectively directly opposite, take some shots at them. As you see here, we'll take some shots, but unfortunately it doesn't really work. I only do about a total of 2 wounds. He later shoots back at me with the same exact unit, and he does 2 wounds to me when he fires back at me. I believe now is when he does that. Just skipping ahead a little bit to show it. Yep. He realizes the unit down here is out of range, so he's just going to shoot here. He'll do 2 wounds to me as well. So he does have to move up because obviously we have the further range. Now, I want to talk about some of, in this particular turn, where I made some good decisions. And the good decision I made in this particular turn, let me clear that old mark there, is that this unit here, so this is my clone unit, or drone unit, and the idea is the Biomancer is right here at the edge. And with that Biomancer, his goal is to send heals out to other units. Now, he is actually close enough to be able to reach in this particular case. However, since I put the Biomancer at the very far edge, it makes it very iffy of whether or not I want to move this unit to me, or what ways I want to move them, because I want to be able to heal them up, want to keep them nice and strong. And if I move too far, then I either won't be able to heal them or get a little out of place. So I think the Biomancer is too far over. In reality, what I really should have done with this guy is I really should have put the Biomancer a lot closer to here, so that way he would be able to support a little bit his end, but his 8 to 12 inch bubbles would actually be able to get to about the middle of the board, which would really be able to help me out in this sort of case. Unfortunately, I don't do that. We're going to see that later. That kind of bites me a little bit. For other things that happen this particular round, I don't have any other units that, I have my unit of Avatar that come in. I pop them right in front. The goal of that is to go and charge the shooting unit, hopefully take them out. Once they're gone, then I have free reign of the middle of the board, or I can kind of pivot to deal with his other units. As you'll see here, he puts his Haspis down low, essentially right across from my Biomancer and his giant block that has lethal demise. And then the last thing that Steve ends up doing is he puts his other units of Selene, so his other shooting unit, up here at the top corner. So as we reach the end of round 2, I have essentially middle to low control down here. He is sitting on the objective at the bottom. There is an objective here. He is sitting on an objective, or almost sitting on an objective at the top, and he is sitting on an objective in the middle. I know the objectives are a little bit hard to see. We'll see if I can make it a little bit easier to see those. I very quickly added some circles that show a little bit exactly where the objectives are. Not perfect, but I'm going to try to keep those on or something like that. So that makes at the end of turn 2 that Steve is at 4, I'm at 0. All right, and we are taking a look at turn 3. So in terms of what happens here in turn 3 for what we get, I get my Centaurs and my unit of Vanguard clones. Steve gets his other unit of, or another unit of Selene. So he's now going to be a total of 3 shooting units. He's going to get a unit of Hapsis, so the heavier bulls with shields, and then a unit of Thyrines. The Thyrines, I believe, is a 5-pack if memory serves. So he's going to get quite a few of those. So beginning parts, obviously, that's just bringing our different units on, having a bit of a discussion related to that. Making sure my Avatar were in the right spot. The die was to be just outside of 12 of his unit. So that way when he decides if he wanted to charge with that unit just to tie me down, he couldn't do so. But I was in a good position when I moved 7 unit that could burn out for an additional 2. That means they could actually make it on a charge with the Unstoppable they had. Now, Steve wins the roll-off. And he decides to have his shooting unit go first, fire into my Avatar unit right over here. Let me get to the spot where that happens. Yep, that happens here. I'm going to end up taking a total of 2 wounds from this Yep, he popped his shots right there. Yeah, that was me there cleaning up the dice. What we're going to find in this particular round, there's a decent bit of Steve rolling pretty well and me not doing quite so much in terms of some of these rolls, some of these spots when I kind of needed it and it didn't quite work out. Steve then pushes himself back a few inches to make it where realistically when my avatar go, which my avatar go right now, that when those avatar go, they realistically they're going to have to do a move charge. Before it was possible to do it, not necessarily the greatest odds, probably had to use burnout and all. I did take up like 2 wounds, makes it a little bit dicey. But at this point, it's a move charge only, unless I think, no, I don't think he even had it on a 6 at that point. With burnout, maybe on a 6. But even then, I think I'm just out. So as we're going to see, we just move up. We end up doing our impacts. There we are. So we do our impact attacks. Once we do our impact attacks, I get a total of, I want to say it's 2 wounds onto him. If I can get to the point where that actually happened. Yep. So there's my die rolls. I had, 2, 4, 6, like 9 or 10 impact attacks. I got 2 through when it's all said and done. He fails 1 save. I think fails the resolve or makes both resolves. I know at the end of the day, he took a total of 2 wounds is the net result of what action happened there. What happens next? Steve starts having some of his characters go, very much the same as me. So he has his character go to give them super contesting here in the middle, so that way, even if we're 4v4, he's going to be able to take it. Shortly after that, I'm going to have my my avatar character go and just do a lot of nothing. I think I have the Highborn go as well next. He doesn't do anything, so there's a little bit of back and forth of stalling. I know he gives the reroll 6s of defense to his unit up here. That's the next action that Steve does. But the next action to talk about, if we kind of move forward a little bit to see it, he has the other unit of shooting goats up here go. And we measure it out, and we figure out that there is enough distance for him to be able to make this shot if he pushes forward. So if he moves, he'll be able to get 3 out of the 4 stands to be able to shoot. So we'll move forward so you can kind of see that happen. We were doing a bit of measurements and a little bit of geometry to figure out. It's actually going to be 3 out of 4. Even though they look like they would make the distance, the fact that they're moving not in a straight line going towards it means you do have to consider the triangle that you'll make out of this. So he pushes forward. He gets some shots. Move forward to that. Yep, there's his shots. Goats have a lot of shots. The goats are really good. I found for this that I hadn't faced them as much before, so I wasn't really sure how it was going to do, and they did a lot of damage overall. And that one in particular, you see, I pull up a full stand, so they got 4 wounds through. Good amount of hits. I mean, I'm on 4s on defense, and I just, on like 6 of them, I missed 4. So I did some pretty bad rolls in that particular spot, and I lost the unit for it. Next is the Biomancer, and here's where we're going to start talking about some of the misplays I had. And overall, I think I had some decent misplays in this. When I look at what the Biomancer can do, I did take the Biomancer upgrade so that way if a unit is on an objective like my unit is, that they get to count as being on that objective and therefore within his range. If you're on objective, you get to count the range. So it helps with essentially the Biomancies. However, the healing is not a Biomancy, the base healing at least, which means I don't have that, which means I need to be within 8, outside of 8. The unit, I'm pretty sure actually has, I don't remember if they've actually already went or not, but either way, they don't move because there's these bulls hanging out right here that I'm a little bit worried about. But I'm not close enough for that heal. I don't need the heal inside my unit. And the other Biomancies, well, my shooting unit has, they're going now, and so they don't actually get anything to help with. So actually, no, I think it was this unit and then the Biomancy goes later. I was talking about, we put in that position, bearing a notice. I triggered my Biomancer at the wrong time. Effectively, I make him go too late. I had the drone unit go. They decided not to move. Probably should have, but I was worried about the bulls hitting me. But even with that, then I'm going to be, even at this point, even if I moved, I'd be way too far out to get the heals going. It's not quite enough of a heal. And the Biomancer goes too late and is ill-positioned then to be able to support them and give them some extra bonuses, which they really could have used. If anyone knows, one of the things the Biomancer gives them is Deadly Shot. So, hey, if you roll some 6s, I'm popping even more wounds through because this is a unit on his side that has pause it briefly. That I remember loose formation. So we don't remember at the time that is loose formation. Roll the dice. We take half. I rolled really great, so we just took half the number of hits. He takes a few wounds. Nothing too big happens there. But it could have been really big had I remembered to have my Biomancer go early. I was using him very late because I wanted my units to do something. But doing that bit late meant that it was too much of a delay. I wasn't getting the buffs and the placements and all the extras that I needed, which was the problem I was running into. So, next thing we're going to see here is Steve's going to bring on his next unit, if memory serves. Yep, there it is. This is his other shooting unit. So he has 3 total shooting units, the one back here, the unit here that I'm engaged with, and the unit over here on the side. So those 3 units of ranged goats that he has. We'll pass for... Oh, yeah, sorry. This is when the unit actually goes, so they do push forward. They try to stay outside of an auto charge from them. Again, I have lethal demise, so if I get hit, that's not the end of the world. But it was my Biomancer for it. Means I didn't really get to do anything good. Even if I had moved, I would have been ill-positioned to do much else with him. So, oh, my apologies. Actually, it was just my Biomancer right now. Oh, it was other characters I had, I think, that went before. That didn't do much of anything. But where I was, my Biomancer, I'm not in a position. This distance is too great. These guys already went. I know I can't buff anyone. We're going to see pretty soon. It doesn't really matter what my Biomancer does because pretty soon that's going to just be handled. So he unfortunately does a lot of nothing. I think I ill-positioned him down here. I think that was a bad spot for him. He wanted to be more of the middle. And he wants to go earlier to get those Biomancies going because for where he is now in this turn 3, the other things that he can do aren't really helping because I know he has a couple cards left, but most of my cards that are left are the units coming on. It's my Vanguard clones as well as my Centaurs. So not too much there. Now, here is the crazy bit that happened. I decided to do at the Rupture, which for the Rupture, that means I roll d6 plus 1 hits into my unit and to his unit in terms of the flank. We do that right here to this. My idea was he's down 3 wounds on the stand. Do a little bit more wounds. I'll be able to pop this stand down. I'll maybe be able to take him down. Maybe if I can do enough, break him. And then, yeah, he's super contesting, but no one gets it. I'm in a good spot, and I'm on 4s and 4s. He's on like 2s and 4s. He fails 1 die roll. I fail 4. So only on 2, I fail both of them. And I failed both resolves. He only fails a total of 1 wound. So on that, which was pretty likely on my end, comparatively, I lost a full stand. I end up breaking instead. It gets pretty bad. We get a unit of shield bulls. I'll fast forward to what they happened. That wasn't a bad decision on my part. I think the Catabolic Rupture was a good idea there because that could give me a bigger advantage. Because remember, this unit does have Aura Death, which means if I could have popped them down to an extra stand, that means the Aura Death would probably just wipe him out initially anyway. And that's what I was looking to have happen. He has his shield bulls come in from the side down there, or up at the top, I should say, supporting right behind his shooting unit. Now, when I see this, my thought for this is, all right, if I can lock in this shooting unit, so if I can actually combat them, and depending on how many of them I destroy, but if I don't destroy that many, I could actually prevent that unit behind from actually being able to fight. Reason being, remember, you're allowed to cross over your own units unless they're in combat. If they're in combat, you're not allowed to touch units, which means with his proximity there, if I can hit them with something, and not even if I do that many wounds to it, then I lock you in. You're stuck there, and that's kind of what I want. For that, then, I put my Vanguard clones down here at the far end. They have Vanguard, so they're able to get nice and close. The idea is they're setting up to be able to either charge the side or charge a little bit of the front. Won't be that much, but enough of it. And as we're going to see in a moment, my Centaur Avatara are going to be coming in right next to these guys. Again, with the idea of I want to overload this flank, take it down. I can leave one of my units, my Vanguard clones, on this objective, and then the Centaurs can start pushing across through the middle to be able to hit whatever they need to or get into the backfield to deal with more of these shooting units. We see at this moment, Steve makes actually a really good play. So he has his other unit of Haspis go. He realizes, okay, charging it isn't really going to do him that good. He can make it, but it's going to probably be a move charge, or he needs like the 6, or I think I piled just outside the 6. But then he's not wide enough to be on the objective. And any damage he does to me, I do back to him in lethal demise. He probably takes reasonably close to the damage that I do. Not perfect, but reasonably close. And he's a much smaller unit. I can survive better, and I have healing. So instead, as you're going to see what he does, is he positions himself so that way he is blocking out or right onto the edge of the objective. So that's the end of the objective right there. So he's making sure he can still keep the objective while having the maximum distance, because he doesn't want to push forward because he's worried about my charge. So he's essentially making sure that I can't get a good thing on a charge. But if I want the objective, I'll have to move forward and get into a spot where he can effectively fight me. As I said with my Centaur Avatara, I'm going to pop them in at the top. And the whole idea of that with their particular position is I want them to go early, hit the bow unit. That way the bow unit can't, 1, be shooting me, 2, can't shoot my Avatara here on the side. And if I don't do that much damage in, I can lock the other unit of bulls behind me. That then gives my Vanguard clones a chance to fight the bulls. Hopefully the Avatara the following round crack through the rest of this, hit into the bulls, finish them off, and then they can roam free. That gives them a turn 5 to start being able to go wherever they wish. So, for Steve's side, for what he does next, which is actually is a really strong play, the close combat form of the... Oh, did I pause that? Pause that by accident. The close combat form of these guys. The goats, which I'm forgetting their name right now, of course. I had to look up their name, but I'll look that up real fast. I'm not good with their names because this is the first time. Actually, I faced the close combat ones before, but I haven't actually faced the ranged ones. Steve's testing them out because he likes the idea of running lists, but he wants to see if it actually could work first before he buys a bunch of them and finds out they're bad. The Satori. So he's going to have a... he's going to go back and forth on what he wants to do with them. But what you'll notice, they're actually, I cut it out. They're down here. So he puts his big unit of Thyrines up here. So that way, if this goes my way, which realistically it should, he can then slam through, gets him in a really good position to be able to take down my marksman clones. And a good support so that way I can't rush through anywhere up here and get to his shooting unit. He has a close combat unit that I had to fight through first. But if you notice down here, he has his unit of, I said the Satori. So their rule is that they can come on the board from any flank, anywhere they want. It's not like the reinforcements, and they don't care about the opponent. So we played that you can come in anywhere because it's the way it's worded. If that's not the intention, you need to reword it. But that means he's able to come into the flank related to my drones, and I'm not in a position to see them. And if he goes early, he can hit me in the side. We know my defense is bad. My defense is 2 in the front because of shield, so it's 1s. My resolve isn't bad because my resolve I can always use the highest. I can use the Biomancers with this size. We're looking at about a 4 or so. But if I start taking damage, it's going to start becoming a problem. Now, we're going to see that obviously happen in turn 4. But thinking about it, when you look at this, I'm seeing that he wants that to probably go early. Do I try to do anything with them early to say rotate them to in here? So instead, because they do have a little bit of impact, or do I just say, well, you know what? If he's going to maybe go with that early, I'm going to go with Centaurs early. I'll see whatever happens here. And my Centaurs, then I can lock this down because I don't want to mess that up. If he were to win the roll and he ends up having the advantage in the next round, if he wins the roll, then if I time this incorrectly, he could smack me, take out enough stands, it doesn't matter much what happens to me. I don't do much back, and then he shoots across, takes his unit out, or does something like that. So I want to be able to do that. When you're planning what to do, especially if you're at the disadvantage, I try to plan my second best move. You know, probably my best move, if I knew I could get the initiative, have this unit go, maybe rotate, charge them, that way there's no flank, they're in the bad arc, something like that, or these guys. Since I know what his absolute best move is, I'm going to do my second best move, or my potentially first best move, depending on which way you want to think about it. But that overall is the plan that we go with. So at this moment, that gives Steve 7 points because he actually has, before I think I said 4, he got 3 last round. He's getting 4 this round because he actually has all 3 objectives, the 2-pointer and the 2 1-pointers. So now we'll go on to turn 4. All right, and we are here then with turn 4. So, again, we're going to try to run through quickly the sorts of things that happen that we can kind of follow along, and I can show you the more interesting bits. So, for this, we both get the rest of our armies, and for me, that's some Incarnate Sentinels, some Centaur, my Avatara, and the Siege Breaker. Steve gets his other unit. I think he was just missing a unit of Satori and... I think there might be one more heavy unit. We're going to see, but I can't think of what it was that he had, because he has both his units of bulls. He has all of his... Yeah, it's just the other Sateri. But actually, I don't believe he gets them. He might have to delay on those. He did get the one unit in last round, which we have down here, but I think he actually waits till round 5 for the other unit, if memory serves. We're going to see, though. Or no, I think they do come in just a little bit late. So, for his first pull, he chooses his archers. Now, be aware that for city-states, if you take the right leader, that once per game, you can put a card right at the start in your strategic stack, and that's what he did. As we're going to see, that's a unit of Satari. So he starts with his archers right here in the middle. He ends up doing 1 wound to me. Not too much happens, so I take 1 wound. The big thing, though, as you can see down here, is he pulls from his strategic stack that unit of Satori, so that way they can charge the flank of my drones. For anyone who isn't aware, drones are essentially, they can always use the best leadership. That's essential, or best morale. That's their rule. Resolve characteristic. But effectively, they're defense 1 from the side because they're ones with shields. They don't have evade. These guys have cleave 1. And I lose the unit. Now, they did have lethal demise, so as we're going to end up seeing, he ended up losing his unit as well. But his initial swings, the fact that they have cleave 1, means that I'm not going to get any saves on this. Now, they do have impact, so he gets a few wounds through an impact. But then when he actually goes and takes his swings at me, he rolls pretty decent. I said, I don't get any rolls on this. I believe his stats might have been on force at that point, and he has various ways. This unit, I believe they have rules for if they're in the flank, they get rerolls and all of that. They have a lot of bonuses. I forget the name of it right now, but they have rules for that as well, which means that he's able, as we see here, to pop off half, break my unit on just the initial swing. That does mean, though, that he's taking a lot back in damage himself. I want to say it was 15 wounds on the first swing. That means he's taken 15 back. But I also have resolves. Now, my resolve isn't terrible, but at this point I've already broken. That means I do take some ill effects from breaking, as well as I only need to lose 8 more wounds to actually shatter. And since he's in my flank, that means I have to re-roll any successes I get, which makes it all just the more likely that he actually gets through what he needs. And as we're going to see, he does get it. I want to say I'm actually on 4s, but 1, I don't roll that great, and 2, I have to re-roll successes. Passing 2/3 by having to re-roll those passes is going to end up being enough that, yeah, you'll be able to take him down. And there goes then my Biomancer, the unit he was in. Yes, I do destroy his unit as well. He actually takes enough damage in the backswing off of my lethal demise to destroy him, but that doesn't matter as much. Well, yeah, he actually, it's opportunist is the rule. He had opportunist, so he gets the rerolls. That is a trade in his favor, 1 points-wise, of course. But the other thing is the Biomancer is a lot of strength in this particular list. There's all kinds of buffs he can do. He was actually set up this turn to buff up my archers before they fire. But obviously that doesn't happen then. Now, first thing I do, as I said before, I figured that was what he was going to plan. So I wanted to go with my strongest move, which would be to take my centaurs and hit them into his archery unit. So that way, 1, they can't shoot, 2, maybe I destroy them a bit, and hopefully if I don't destroy too many, I'll block his other unit of Haspis from charging me. As we're going to kind of see in this battle, overall, it doesn't always quite go the way that I want. So I do end up attacking. I take off, I want to say it was like 2 stands when it's all said and done. I don't destroy them entirely. I thought I might. I do leave some, but due to where he has a placement related to his leaders and his command stand, he loses some, but he's able to keep it where then there actually is an avenue to charge, which is something that we're going to see him do in the not too distant future, actually. Yeah, my centaurs go to the archers. He then goes with his archers to my Avatara. Yeah, he has his archers go out to the Avatara. Of course, that means I have Aura Death on this unit. As we're going to see, my Aura Death does exactly what it should do, which will actually end up, I believe, destroying them if memory serves. Yes. So I end up taking him out, but that means my character hasn't went yet, so my character gets the swing. The character swings actually will end up taking out his last stand because he has a character stand as well as the unit. And he had, I think, like 3 wounds left. So I was able to do enough. So that's a full destruction down here. That's a full destruction of everything in the middle. And not too far off of a full destruction up here, as we'll kind of see depending on things as they go. So after that, that is my vanguards going into his bulls. Now, what is a little bit tough to see here is there's some impassable terrain right up at that corner. For that impassable terrain, that does make it where I can't position myself well to get more than 1 stand in full contact. And these guys do have the Assault Preceptor, which means my command stand gets rerolls, so my command stand will get 1 reroll from its support. But the thought was to get a lot of attacks in, because that's what this unit does. Unfortunately, they don't get really as many attacks. I think I take a few wounds off. I don't actually even quite take out a stand, unfortunately, on my part when I go. So, his next thing happens is his unit. Yeah, I'm measuring ranges to check what has range on sight. That's my marksman. Unfortunately, they're out of range of the bulls, even with a move charge. So they're going to move, plink a few shots over here. Nothing too much happens there. I think I get like a wound through, if that. Next thing that happens then is that his Solani ranged centaurs. His ranged centaurs. Sorry, his range satyrs. Range satyrs fight my centaurs and actually take one down. So even then, on like 4s for stats and stuff like that, I want to say they're like 3s and 4s and all. I don't get the rolls that I need on some of those. What he does here, he pushes up his bulls into a great position. He puts them where he's in a chargeable range, keeps me out of the good range for mine, and makes sure that he's grabbing the objective. So he does a lot of good plays to grab objectives here. I was originally playing with the idea that I wanted to try and do some destruction first, then go for objectives later. That's why I do a lot of times the same Ultimate Minion. I often also do it in my Sorcerer Kings because it works well. For this list, it just didn't quite happen that way. One, my units didn't necessarily want to push forward because of what could happen to them. But also we see with that, I just couldn't get to those positions. And he had a bit more speed with a lot of Vanguard to be able to do it. We see my Incarnates down here. And we're going to see what happens. Oh, sorry. No, that's my Avatara. My Incarnates now come in. My apologies. Had those backwards. So that's my Avatar in front. My Incarnates come right behind them. The idea of being a 1-2 punch, I can push into this. Then the other unit behind, should I get destroyed? Excuse me. Should I not survive it? Have another unit to go with. Steve, as we'll see here, he ends up pushing them, so the circle's a little bit off. He puts them right to the edge, so that way, if I do engage him, so if I get the swings off first, that I'm not actually on the objective. This is something actually Steve's really good at doing, and this is something to try and do yourself. If you know there's going to be charges either way, you're going to take the hits, you might as well position yourself that way. If you don't get destroyed, the opponent doesn't get what they want, which in this case being the objective, because I am down on points, currently down by 7 and about to be down by more. Up here we're going to see it ends up being a tie. He has this one and this one. That's going to be another 3. So he's actually going to go to 10 at the end of this round. Last thing that happens in this round of use is that I put my Siege Breaker. I do have to put him in the woods. I'm mostly doing that because I don't want him too close to his side because he still has another Satyr unit to come in. I don't want this guy getting locked down because they actually have some evade and he'll get stuck. Plus, my marksmen need the help. And the thought is if he goes into the marksman first, I'll go into his side and I can hopefully just whittle them down really fast. Very last thing he does is his Satyr unit, which I do believe we speed up a little bit of what happens. Yep, a little bit of placement right there. So for that Satyr unit, they essentially pop right behind me. that means that they're teed off to be able to hit my Avatara. And if they hit it correctly, these guys are too far up. They won't actually see them. So he has a little bit of a decent bit of impunity there. That was a big misplay on my part. Knowing he had them to come in, I kind of played away from the side. So he could have went here to work with that. Not too much I can do there. That's mainly why the Siege Breaker was somewhat here. But for this side, what I really should have done is held these guys further back. One, I could make sure he couldn't get past me. And two, if he did try to push here, then I have a unit to come back with, can destroy his unit. That would help quite a bit. But that's turn 4. Steve's up now, 10-0. All right, real nice and quick turn 5 here, because we're starting, as you guys should hopefully know in Conquest, the game gets faster as you go along, because you just have less units. Now, for the roll-off, Steve actually has less cards because he has less characters, I believe, than I do, or I have just one more. So he ends up winning the roll-off. He obviously goes with the Satora unit down here, so that way they can go and hit these guys in the back, and they will end up taking them out. Not too surprising. I do have decent stats, but one, wasn't necessarily rolling that great. Two, his guys are like 18 attacks with reroll, hitting on 3s with rerolls. So you're looking at an average 12 to more. I want to say he hits about 14 or 15 out of those 18. I'm in back arc, he has cleave 1, so essentially on 3s. I should fail about half of those, about 9 or so. We know the Avatar only 4 wounds a pop. And then my resolve, which isn't too bad, but I have to reroll any successes. That's enough to end up taking them out. I don't think I even actually rolled the resolve part just because I had taken so many wounds. We knew they were done either way. Knowing that there was a decent chance that I might end up going second. Oh no, actually I believe we actually were tied on cards, but we re-rolled and I just lost it. Either way though, I planned for second, and I planned for the only move that really made sense to me at the time, which was the Centaurs, because if he wins the roll, he's probably going to go down here, which means that my Avatar unit's removed. So if I try to go with him first, probably not doing me good. So I might as well just go with my next strongest move, which was the move up here. Now thinking about it, I could have put the Avatar first. I might have actually put them first, but I didn't think they would get the swing. And as soon as it happened, I think I top-decked it right off because I knew it wasn't going to occur. They do end up taking this unit out, and then there's a back and forth of whether or not I end up charging in, because my guys are fairly hurt, especially by the time he ends up being finished with his swing backs that he gets. Because that one did have his Warlord in it. So I do take a few more wounds. So I am actually down 1 at this point. So I only have 2 remaining. 2 remaining with a wound on him. So I have about 9 wounds remaining. I am just about on the objective. I can push on to the objective. But the question is, do I charge that unit? Now, my original goal was to charge the unit of Haspis up there. That's what I always thought. With the injuries I took, there was a little bit of back and forth. Would that make the most sense to do? And especially on something like this, I thought, well, okay, maybe I should go for the Thyrians in the middle. Well, no, the Siege Breaker's there. That should be his job. And the Marksmen, if I get to go first, the Marksmen might be able to plink 1 or 2 of them off, eat a bit of the charge, have him go in trying to finish it. So, and I knew if I left the Haspis alone with my vanguards are going to be gone, because my vanguards, I'm already down a stand. So instead, I do end up pushing in there. I do end up doing my impact attacks, and I do believe I do remove 1. Yep, I do remove 1. So he's got 2 left. So overall, worthwhile trade on my part. For the next thing that happens, he moves his Thyrians in. I had hoped he was going to wait on that. I kind of banked that he might do some other moves first, depending on what I may do. But unfortunately, he does go with his Thyrians, which means I don't get my marksmen to shoot. Now, there was the consideration of should I put them up higher. I was worried a little bit that since my Centaurs were already somewhat injured, that if he swung first, I might lose too many Centaurs, therefore becoming ineffective at the top. And I do believe the Avatar I did try to go with early as well, to try to be able to take down or charge in to his Haspis first, so that way I would actually be able to not necessarily get out of their range, but affect some damage, pull them up, and that would get them to incarnates to have line of sight. So I took a calculated risk in delaying my marksman clones. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work out for me here. Had I gotten the gotten the turn first, might have swinged it quite a bit, because off of his order, the units then would be in the way. These guys would have much better shots. Things could have been different. So this is a turn, I will say. I do think I made some big misplays, but had I gotten that, the first activation instead, not that it would have changed the exact outcome, but it might have done a lot in terms of me having a much better outcome, especially in that region. Now, these guys are on 1s or zeros because they have no evade, and Thyrians are cleave 3. I obviously lose a bunch. I get broken, but I don't shatter. I do have my character left and the unit itself, one stand of it. And at this point, then I actually went with the marksman. So it's a high clone executor getting some attacks in, and a marksman getting some attacks in. I end up doing 4 wounds, so I don't take off one of them yet. What he does next? After that, he goes with his lower Haspis. He's essentially measuring the range, and this is a good idea. He measures the range to figure out whether or not I can get effectively a charge and attack on him. So what he ends up doing is he backs up a little bit so that he still has the objective. He's still well positioned for it. He's keeping it close enough so that way, if I do that, the satyrs then will get a flank charge on my Incarnate Sentinels. Even if I wipe him, he'll now be able to get his flank charge or back charge. Flank might be a little bit better because it gives him a better shot at getting to that objective as well. So the objective thing went away. I wasn't sure exactly why I clicked on something, I guess. So he gives himself a really good position there. I don't have too much saying what I can do, so I have my vanguards go. They inspire and they swing. They do like a wound. They really don't do much of anything, unfortunately. What happens next? He has his ranged goats, which are just hanging out there right in the middle. We'll move till they get to do something. Oh, my apologies. What he did before that, I had a little bit backwards of an order here. He has the upper Haspis here take their swings. I survive with 1 wound on vanguards, and I do lose another one of my... Oh, no, I think I just take a few wounds. I don't think I lose a stand on the centaurs, but my vanguards now are down to a single wound remaining. So it gets pretty rough. What happens now? I end up having my incarnates charge the side. I didn't want to move them forward. If I move them forward, they could do a lot against the Haspis there. Maybe even take them out potentially on that if I can get the numbers to work. However, if I do that, there's still a really good chance then that I get charged in the back, and I'm just probably not going to survive that. So instead I decide, well, okay, if I go into this unit, if I can wipe them early, so if I get to go early and take them out, and the hope was that my impacts would do more, they unfortunately didn't. But if I get in there and wipe them out, and I can go early next turn, I can then get the charge onto here. Because at the current moment, it may not look it, but I actually do have line of sight. We actually did check this. We're going to see what happens to it later, but I currently actually do have a line of sight. Obviously, Siegebreaker goes in to hit the side. He had a few characters go in the middle. The only other thing, the Siegebreaker does a few wounds to him. Takes about 2 bulls off. Not quite enough for what I needed, but yeah, he does something. Last thing he ends up doing, he might have done it before. I thought he pushed for the middle objective. Maybe he doesn't. No. Okay. He does not actually end up pushing for the middle objective. I thought he had. So he ends up keeping it clear. He moved up so he'd have range. So he would know he would have range whenever my Siegebreaker comes in. But he didn't actually want to move on to the objective because then obviously the Siegebreaker might have went at them instead, destroy them, and if I can do good enough, turn around, start smacking these guys as well. So he ends up staying back. That does make it this turn then. Since we are in turn 5, he scores the points down here. He's going to end up scoring 2 points, so it's going to be 12-0. This, I have a broken unit, and he's 2v2, so not quite scoring that one yet, but getting close to it. So at this point, end of turn 5, it is 12-0. Not looking great for my side, although he's lost a lot of units. If I can get the right turns to get this to go well, this overtime, hopefully I roll decent, should go well. And I do have the advantage here with these 2 different units, again, depending on timing, but I still have some ways to pull it back. All right, here we have our turn 6. And with turn 6, unfortunately, again, I don't win the initiative, which I kind of really did need. Steve goes with Thyrians first. The idea be to see what kind of damage he can do to the Siegebreaker, as well as finish off these marksman clones, just because he has lost 2 bulls. He's taking a couple extra wounds, just to make sure that I can't do enough to him. He does do a reform. We end up switching up a little bit in the way in which he reforms, because he wanted to try to maximize the attacks onto the Siegebreaker. However, he's not able to get all 3 because the sizes of the bases don't quite line up. So he essentially goes a 2x1. And when he does that, 2 with the 1 guy hang out in the back this way, he can send 2 at my Siegebreaker. He can send 1 shot at the marksman. The marksman's had like 2 or 3 wounds left. They absolutely take him out. We did miss that my high clone should swing. He does swing later. He doesn't do anything, so it was a miss, but nothing really lost in that particular miss. I do take some wounds. I'm still standing there, but I take about 3 or 4 wounds when it's all said and done. My first go is my incarnates. Now, we miss something on this, and later on, I'm going to save you from it at a later point, but we go back and we fix this. But essentially what happens here is that my incarnates do their swings, and they do, I want to say it's like 8, or no, almost exactly half. It's like 7 damage, and then, no, sorry, 5 damage. They do 5 damage because I've already done 2 to it. So there's 12 total wounds. They do 5 damage on their swings. After that, then he has resolves. So I'm in his flank. He has resolves. If he misses any of them, if he misses, or sorry, I should say if he misses all of them, that's the 10 wounds I need to destroy the unit. And as you saw before, the measurement, I actually do have line of sight to them. Not great line of sight, but I do have something. And with the 90-degree pivot and all of that, I'd be able to get at least 1, maybe 2 stands connected, get some impacts, take some hits, that's okay, but then I'm set up for the following turn. What we missed on this was that Steve made a mistake here. He said they're resolve 3. They're actually resolve 2. So when he ends up rolling these dice, he gets 1 success because he gets 1 on a 3. Everything else is way too high, as you notice there. When he has to reroll the successfuls, he gets 1 3, but they're not actually 3s, they're 2s, which means the whole unit should disappear. Now, we catch this later, and what we actually do, and I won't show that on this, is we end up playing this part back. And we check would have made a difference. So essentially we destroy the unit, I get the charge here, and then we play out this part of the game with these two going back and forth each other, see what happens. What it boils down to, it wouldn't have made a difference. I think right near the end, I actually do end up clearing them out in our little back and forth rolls we did, but it takes me too many turns to do it. Those too many turns means that he's able to keep that objective secured for too long, ends up scoring those points. So I'm not able to actually pull anything out there. So we did make a little mistake, but it didn't actually change the outcome of the game at all. What he chose then was the Satori. So this unit goes and swings, doesn't really do much of anything. But again, normally it wouldn't have been there, but that's fine. If not, it would have changed a little bit of the order here. But even then, it might have been more in his favor in the other spot. Because what I go with next is my Centaurs. So my Centaurs at the top do their swings. They put a few wounds onto his Haspis unit here. But had the Satori not been there, he has his Haspis go next, which might have been enough to take me down, because I do take down 1 more bull. If I take down 1 more bull, no, I don't know if I even take 1 out. Do I even take 1 out? Actually, no. I think I do a few wounds. Yeah, I do a few wounds. I don't believe I actually get rid of 1, which... Oh, he was yes, I do, because we went on a rules discussion of what happens now, do I push and things like that. So I do leave him with 1. Had he swung with both instead, he might have done more wounds to me. So he does have the Haspis unit go now. He decides to swing at the Centaurs. Rather than destroy the last Vanguard, what he ends up deciding to try and do is, if he can take out one of the Centaurs, which only has about 2 wounds on it, then he'll break that unit. They won't be able to score that objective. And he's playing for objectives. He's playing to try and keep me back. He's hoping then that that single Vanguard, who was broken, has to unbreak swing, and their dice numbers aren't great. I mean, they have a good amount of dice. He's going to have 8 attacks, but he's on 2s. 2s are rolling, but still 2s. Which means if I don't get that through, and that particular mentor has like 5 wounds on him remaining, means he gets a stick, and it'll be a contested objective. And he's fine with contesting it because he's up on points. He'd rather be able to stick through. Next, I do have that Vanguard go. He does swings. He gets a total of like 2 hits in. He does like a wound, if that. After that is the Bow Goats. Bow Goats don't have range. They're actually just on the Siege Breaker, but again, since it's a points game, which makes the most sense to do, is to push up onto the objective. You know you're getting the points down here. You know now the middle is worth more, because in this particular mission, it's worth more in some of the later rounds. So you push up. That way you can guarantee yourself 3 points. You can get yourself up to 12 points. Me sitting at, I think, still a 0 at this point. Maybe a 2, but still very, very under. So, 15 points he'll be at. Me at about 2 points or so. And he actually rolls good. He gets 8 hits. I fail 4 saves on 4s. So he actually does do quite a bit of damage. The Siege Breaker's down, I think, about 8-9 wounds at this point. After that is the Siege Breaker himself. He takes some swings in. He takes out... Oh, sorry. Overshot a little bit there. He takes out, I believe, another bull, but that's about it. He doesn't get much further than that. He obviously has his Haspis down here. They end up choosing not to do anything for their action. They don't want to because they're on objectives. They're scoring points. If they charge in, yeah, you'll get something, but then I have the ability to fight them. And the earlier I fight them, the better chance I have of destroying them. So he avoids doing all of that. My apologies about that. There we go. I'll pop back to a screen to be able to see some. Sorry, for editing purposes, I move these things away. So that does it for turn 6. We're going to go very quickly through the other ones because there's not much left. All right, and what we're going to do here is I'm just going to run you through the last few turns pretty quick because we don't take very long to do all of this. First thing that makes sense for me to be able to do is have my incarnates go. We see they obviously take out the last guy, which they should have taken out before. So we do go back and fix that. And you're going to see right at the end, I'll show you what happens there. But effectively, this unit does its thing. Whenever they would have went, it wouldn't have made too much of a difference. In all the future rounds, they would have wanted to go first anyway because this is an objective I truly needed. So we have a little bit of a back and forth on that one, but we do fix that later. He has his bull go here to see if he can do anything before he goes down. Doesn't quite work in his favor. My Siege Breaker Behemoth's still alive. Next thing I do is obviously I go up top to take down his last Haspis. And that way, I do that actually with the Vanguards, I believe. So that way, I still have my Centaur who can start moving because maybe he can go down to here. I can keep this objective then with my Vanguards, have my Centaur start making his way, maybe hit these guys on the side. When the Siege Breaker finishes this off, maybe I can clear that out. Maybe I can do it with enough turns left. Although, at this point, at turn 7, we already have a problem. 7 / going to go into 8 / going to go into 9 pretty quickly here. So, for what happens... Oh, sorry. It was the other way around, actually. It was the Centaur who took it out. Vanguards end up moving. For his point, obviously, he just repositions, but like I said, we kind of fight out that part later. I have my Siege Breaker go. Siege Breaker obviously destroys it, then charges in. We end up taking off a few wounds. Don't even actually take out a stand. Steve scores. At this point, if you notice, he's going to score this position here for 1. He'll score not that position. I actually will end up scoring it. No, it should actually be a tie. We're 3-3. I score the position here, so we both score 1. So he's at this point 16. I'm at about 3 points. Following turn, we run through this pretty quickly. Obviously, it's going to be my Incarnates going in, Siege Breaker making his swings, and the other units trying to do their best to come forward as well. I said down here at the bottom, we end up doing the fight. So we do the fight, but we end up going back to it and refiguring it out in a little bit because we realize some of the errors that we made there. It's going to end up being, I don't know if I'll show it in this, but it ends up being that I end up winning that fight. So I do take him out, although it takes too long to do so. Same thing is going to be some of the, what we see in other spots as well. Actually, yeah, this is us going back and forth doing the fight. As you notice, I win the fight. And in the following turn, I'm able to push in. When we count back the turns, I would be able to be standing on the objective by turn 8 by myself. But that's not soon enough. It takes too long to be able to do that. That means I'm only really scoring about 2 points from that. I'm scoring 2 points from this. So in the last few turns, I'm going to score 4 points. I will end up being able to take out the middle as well, but it just takes me too long to be able to do so. So effectively what happens in turn 8, 8 and 9 and 10, because we're in 8. I'm sitting on both of these for 8, 9, 10. I'm sitting on the middle for 9 and 10. So I'm going to score, since this now is the one worth more points, 4 points, another 4, counting for the other one. So we actually end at about 16, 10, because I get 8, maybe 9, so 16, 10, 16, 11. So I end up not being able to take him out, but it does get fairly close near the end. Mostly because, yeah, he doesn't have anything left on the board, but I was unable to score fast enough. Okay, so thoughts on the game overall, thoughts on things that happened. One, I definitely misplayed my Biomancer. I put him in a very bad position. I don't know if this is always true, but I would next time, I try to put my Biomancer a little bit more middled. He doesn't decide to be right in the middle because there's times when that might not be advantageous, but a little bit more middle so he can help support. I did have him on the correct side. I had him on the right side of the unit since the unit was to the far left, but I'd want him a little bit more centered. And if he's a little more centered, then I think he has a better shot at being able to reach some units. And if I know that's where I want to push myself, knowing there's an objective there, that's worthwhile. That unit, for its survivability, might not want to sit on an objective anyway. Since that unit has more of lethal demise, I want them more to be a deterrent than a fight. So they're not trying to go out and actually do much of anything. They're just trying to make sure that the opponent actually doesn't do anything good. So that was a bit of a misplay with them. So be it. Some other spots. I did have some spots where the dice rolls, unfortunately, just didn't go my way. And in any game, that is something. And you should never let that take away from your steps or determine your game entirely. We know there's been cases where that happens. But there's a few spots where if I would have had some of the dice go a little bit different, might have been able to change some of these outcomes. But Steve played his stuff very well. Steve played for the objectives. He played to be able to sit and cap when he needed. And he played for his Satori to be able to effectively cripple the problems that might come up for him. So you always want to give your opponent problems and give them more problems than they can make solutions immediately. And that's when the deciding of who goes when in a turn, all that kind of stuff really matters. With them being able to engage and effectively each time they come in, take out a unit, one, it's reducing units on my side, but more importantly, it's lowering my ability, especially on that one flank, to be able to do anything. That means his one unit of Haspis can just sit there. They're effectively unchallenged almost the whole game, and he can fight in the other spots. So he's getting a bit of an advantage there, and it is a problem I have to deal with. It forces me with those incarnates to be able to turn and fight them. It might have enforced me, if they came in a little earlier at a different timing, for my Biomancer's unit to be much more angled or do something else I don't want to do. So I will say the close combat goats are exceptionally good. They're a really, really good and strong unit. So if you're playing against city-states and they have them, keep aware of what they can do. And if your opponent's smart, they're probably going to try and delay them. They're a unit that wants to show up a little bit later. They want the opponent already set and pushing forward so they can come into the side with reasonable impunity. When I faced them in the past, I've had cases where it was early. I was angled in such a way where you're going to hit me in the front, and I'm much happier with that. You hit me in the side, we start having some problems, especially on units that have shields or don't have some good certain stats that aren't nearly as good. For things I would do different, one, like I said, this is actually the list I was talking about when I made that video about lists that I didn't necessarily like. I think the list is okay, but I more put in the things I thought were cool rather than thinking about how the list works well. I don't think I played for a lot of the Biomancies. And I think that's something I'm going to do in the future. And partly of I'm going to do that is I'm going to make a video going over Biomancer. I think Spires are going to be the next faction that I do deep dives on the units on, and I'm going to especially pay a lot of attention to Biomancer so I can get better at what they do, their tricks and all, because at that moment, I just wasn't doing tricks well. The last few times I played Spires, I never used a Biomancer, so I know I played that poorly with him. For other spots, I'm fine. I don't think my Avatar should have pushed as hard as they did for his bow unit. I think I probably should have plinked at them first, knowing that I'd be obscured, and that's fine, and then had the Avatar push in, or be less worried about his charge with them, with the essentially his range goats. Push so that way, even if he moved back a few inches, I'd still have the charge and attack. I could then take that unit down. I was playing a little too safe with them, and I really shouldn't have. My thought was I could play safe, get in there, crush them, and then go at the next unit, and it just didn't work that way. Avatar good, but with only 4 wounds means that you're going to feel those damage very, very quickly. So I really think I needed to be much more aggressive with them. So I think I wasn't aggressive enough in the side. I think I was very aggressive near the top of the screen, and I think that worked well. Some dice rolls didn't go my way. Obviously, he has units as well. We kind of fought back and forth, but I think my plan there was good. I think my plan at the lower, about 2/3 of the board, wasn't really well thought out. So those are sorts of things I would change now. It's a moot point of saying, if I change that, then I might win. You never know what would happen, because if I change plans, obviously your opponent's going to change plans. But I think when I look at that critically, and having watched back, it gives me a chance to look at it critically. I think those are the things that I would do differently. So I would play my Biomancer a little closer to the middle. I would push with my Avatar a little bit harder, and I would try to prepare a little bit more for those goats. I'd probably angle myself a little bit more when I come in with side units to try and protect the flanks, even just a little bit more than I already did. All right, so that gives it this for this particular battle that we did. Now, This is a little bit of a format. We did this format because the audio didn't quite work out. There were some problems with the audio. We just did a First Blood Battle Report. The audio was fine for that one because I've already went through it. Some of the other ones we had some issues, so I'm going to do this for some of the bigger ones. What I'd like to do is release them essentially in their entirety and me going over it and even shortening up the stuff I talk about. This one went longer than I would have liked with my talking, but I'm going to shorten that up more for the future. Let us know in the comments below what you think of this particular format. Do you like the more of discussion? Do you want to watch long form? What is it that people want? Again, I'm still going back and forth on the best way to do battle reports because I like filming them. Right now we're filming 1 to 2 every week. We might actually be filming another one in a few days. We're getting multiple in of these a week. And I'm still back and forth on the format that I actually like. I like certain things of what we do, but we might be changing some of that as we go along. We'll kind of see. Keep in mind, if you're looking to pick up any Conquest stuff, we do have a discount code in the show notes below. It's Terrain Kickers, saves you 10%, helps out the show, can do things for us like help us, have non-potato equipment. It's decent enough, but I do want to upgrade that. I want to make some improvements, but haven't been able to quite do that yet. That should be coming up hopefully pretty soon, but not quite yet. For other things coming up, we should be doing some stuff related to Sigmar because the 4th edition just released. You're going to have more Conquest stuff. You're going to have some First Blood stuff because we started playing that. We're going to try it out. And it's a little bit faster. We thought that might be good for some of these nights when we don't have quite as much time to play. And hopefully in the not too distant future, getting back to some other things like 30K and all of that. I mean, there's tons of games to talk about. It just depends on what we want to do at any point. All right, well, on behalf of everyone at the show, then, has a good hobby. It's a great gaming.